Anomalies. Anomalies.
Anomalies.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Anomalies. This is a program about things seen out of the corner of one's eye, about shadows and what lurks in those shadows. This is a program about the unexplained and the unexplainable.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Anomalies. I'm one of your hosts, Dan Hall, and my usual host buddy, Dave Jinks, is not with us tonight. He said he was going to look for chupacabras after we talked to Laura Van Zuli, and I thought, well, good luck, because I don't even know what a chupacabra looks like. Wouldn't know one if I saw it. If it bit me, maybe I'd know. So one of the things we have done in the past is something called a Paranormal Roundtable, and that's where we get several people who are interested in paranormal. In this case, these are members of something called the Olympia 14 Society, and that is named after Charles Fort, who was a 19th century author, editor, who just wrote about weird stuff, wrote about cryptids, wrote about flight to the sky. Some people think he's the originator of paranormal. So I don't know if I'd go that far. But anyway, he wrote about all this stuff and set up a society. So I'm going to have a conversation with two of my fellow OFS members tonight. We're just going to see if we can get into the weeds of the paranormal and what they're interested in. So let's do ladies first. LynnDee Rivera, who I've known for quite a while. I think we went back to some ghost hunting classes. So, LynnDee, why don't you, hello, first of all, and welcome. Why don't you tell us why you joined the Olympia 14 Society?
It's an area or a space that you can be open about all the paranormal and nobody judge you. And then you also will find things that regarding the paranormal that you never knew about. And so you could study that also. It's refreshing and freeing to be able to be in this group.
Very good. Let me ask you a question about something you just said. So you said that it's a kind of and maybe I'm not getting the words right, but you said this is kind of a safe place to talk about kind of strange things where you won't necessarily be judged. What do you feel that outside of a place like the OFS, if you talk about strange things, people tend to judge you in some way?
Some, yes. Not so much here in the Northwest, where I'm from. Yes, they think you're a kookananny.
Yeah.
and you're far out there, and it's not true. It's the fact that I have an open mind about the paranormal and actually enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's
yes,
important.
I do feel like I'm being judged.
Yeah, I think a lot of it that way. Well, we're glad you're I don't know, do you know who Dave Scott is? He hosts a radio program called Spaced Out Radio.
Oh, fun. Fun.
He once said that in any other group beside the group that he's in, he'd be considered a weirdo. So people who flock together and like to talk about some of these paranormal things are not weirdos. You're in good company.
Oh, yeah. No, we're very scientific, some of us.
Yeah,
Like you,
really.
very scientific. And,
I don't know about that. I don't feel that way, but thanks for saying that anyway.
But it's not like we're just going to put a silver hat on, and just go crazy on this. We study it up. And you're, when we do the ghost classes, you're, the one that says, I don't know, if this is true or not. You're open to both sides of it.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've come to realize. The more I've looked into this stuff, the more questions there are. So I'm not sure what that's about. The other person that we have with us tonight is another OFS member, And actually, Geoff Pratt, has been on our show before. He was talking about Carl Kochak and the Night Stalker. We enjoyed that discussion. So, Geoff, let me pose the same question to you that I posed to LynnDee. Why are you a member of the OFS?
Oh, I mean, the OFS is kind of really just the latest iteration of my interest. It's really been almost 50 years of interest in anything really weird. Yeah, it certainly started with Bigfoot back in the early 70s, based off an early memory of me being in the back seat of the car Mom and Dad were driving, and then some news story came up about a creature that was nicknamed Momo for Missouri Monster, and my mom and dad were laughing at it because it was the eyewitnesses were a couple of kids, and I'm thinking, well, maybe they did see something out there. You know, maybe there is something to this. And later, when I was in the Boy Scouts, I got Boys Life magazine article from August of 1973. Was about that at that time covered all the major elements of the story. From the Ape Canyon incident in 1924, Albert Ostman's kidnapping in the same year, and of course the infamous Roger Patterson Bob Gimlin film in 1967. So yeah, I just lapped it up, and then later on there were documentaries done, and one in particular called Mysterious Monsters in the mid 70s that I saw, just absolutely just enamored with, and started reading all this stuff. And the other aspect, ghost, I think I've always been kind of interested in ghost stories, going back as a kid, but certainly my own experiences, it's only just sort of added to it. But you're certainly right about it's one of the reasons I joined the Olympia Fortean Society and set up administrator of our Facebook page, is I certainly wanted to take part in an environment where every opinion is valued. It's not you can laugh. It definitely helps to laugh at this stuff anyway, because I mean, you have to have a thick skin and a sense of humor for what you're going to put up with from not a majority of people anymore. I think now it's starting to become more open-minded, which is the good thing. Which basically what we are is we've been pioneers. We had to put up with all the crud that was kind of shoveled our way, and we somehow managed to persevere and still keep our fascination and our sense of wonder about these subject matters close to our hearts. So I certainly hope that makes it.
Yeah, it does to me. So here's a question for both of you. So what is the paranormal? If you were going to define what the word paranormal means, and you mentioned some things that are kind of connected, Bigfoot, ghosts, but what is the paranormal? How do you define it?
The unexplained. It's anything that, I mean, yeah, it's being touched by a spirit, seeing an alien or seeing a ship, stuff that is not the norm in our society, and it's fascinating.
Geoff, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, it's that very brief image of something or someone that you see out of the corner of your eye, and then you go and look for it and discover there's nothing there. It's not in the room you thought it went in, but you do catch a smell of something that takes you back years, if not decades. Like the smell of like cherry tobacco smoke. It's door open by itself with no real explanation, not once, twice, but three times. It's being out with your daughter out hiking up, heading toward Windy Ridge, and because the roads weren't totally cleared yet, you have to park the car and start walking up 90% grade with your daughter and your dog, and just out of the corner of your eye, you see a reflection of something that really should be the size of a semi.
Hmm.
So it's really anything that you just do not have a logical explanation for to cover it, and it doesn't matter how many times you play it over in your head, analyzing from every angle, you just cannot come up with anything.
Mm-mm.
One of my favorite sayings, and it has to do with some of the comments you guys just made, is the purpose of science. So some people say that science, well, some people would say the purpose of science is not to explain the uninvestigated, it's to investigate the unexplained. And that's always made a lot of sense to me because a lot of scientific folks, particularly in the Bigfoot community, if you start talking Bigfoot with them, they go, "Oh, sorry, I got someplace to go or someplace to be." They don't want to hear that. I remember I had a foot surgery here about a year or so ago, and before you have the surgery, they send in the anesthesiologist, and so I didn't particularly want to talk about my foot. So I said, and this guy's an MD, so I said, "What do you think about near-death experiences?" Which I think are quite common. I mean, I've read a lot about near-death experiences, and this guy looked at me and said, "Hey, you're either dead or you're not. No such
Oh,
thing as near-death experiences." So I thought, okay, that kind of tells me where he's coming from. So difficult to get modern science to take a look at some of these weird things. So my next question for you is share with us, if you want to, something paranormal that happened to you. And Geoff, you just kind of did, said something kind of strange, but just LynnDee and Geoff, just share something that happened to you that you consider to be pretty paranormal.
go ahead, Jeff. You start.
Oh no, ladies first.
No. Oh, where do I start? I've had so many.
Yeah.
So the one that I did write down, which was when I was 5,
Ah,
I lived on the beach in Florida, and we used to take a walk at sunset. And coming back, it would be dark. And there's a group of people, and over the water, we saw a green cigar-shaped, glowing green cigar-shaped thing. Now I'm 5. All I can truly remember of that experience is that the waves that were coming up to the shore and flipping over were this beautiful green. I noticed the thing up there, but I wasn't interested in that. I was more interested in how beautiful the waves were. And that was in Florida. A lot of the 3 that I have experienced were in Florida. I was at my house. This is a different one. At my house, woke up in the middle of the night, just uneasy. So I went outside to get some air, and there's a light post not far from, and on a dead-end street, not far, that was illuminating. But I happened to be sitting out in the front and noticed some movement, and I saw 2 shadow figures walk between my property and my neighbor's property. I could see their hands, and I knew they were male. There was a tall one and like a teenager or a shorter version, and I could see their arms moving. And as soon as then I had a big bush, and they went past, and I just watched them go past, and then all of a sudden they were gone. And then same place, years after this experience, went out again. I enjoyed quiet times at like 3 a.m. The kids are asleep, everybody's just nice and quiet. I'm outside again, and all of a sudden I noticed something out of my peripheral, and I looked up, and it was like a large dinner plate, and it was like a aqua blue, beautiful color. It wasn't throbbing, it wasn't pulsating or anything. It was just sitting up there in the tree line. And I looked at it, and it just sat, it wasn't bobbling, it was just solid. And so I kept looking at it, and all of a sudden, faster than a blink of an eye or anything, it took off and it was gone. No idea what it was, but it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And in the house I'm in now, I've seen shadow figure run from my washroom into the garage. My mother would have been sitting on the couch, and she kept looking back into the kitchen saying, "Oh, he's here." And I go, "Who's here?" And she goes, because she was able to see spirits. And she goes, "Oh, there's been a guy in the kitchen forever. And sometimes I see him out of the side of my eye and stuff." And I said, "Oh, really?" And she was 90 something. So that night, I went into the kitchen after everybody had gone to bed, a little discussion with this spirit that if he behaves, and is okay with people here and doesn't draw on their energy or mess with us, you're welcome to stay. But if you do, you're going to have to go. So I went to bed, and the next morning woke up, but you know how you wake up, but you don't open your eyes just yet. And I felt it was definitely a finger went across the bottom of my lip, and it was sort of chilly.
Wow.
It wasn't cold, but it was sort of chilly. And so I opened my eyes, and I looked around for anything that would have caused it first. Nothing. And so I said, "No touching. You're not allowed to touch."
Yeah, no, none of that.
No touching. And then I felt his hand on my arm. And I said, "I mean it. No touching, or you're out of here." And it was very interesting. And then I had seen, maybe a couple months after that, I was going out to the garage. We have a greenhouse that's attached to the house. And I had the light on in the washroom. For some reason, I went out to the greenhouse. The light's on. I saw a shadow on the ground that was going out the side door, a shadow on the ground, but there was no person there to give the shadow. It was the most bizarre thing I'd ever seen. It was just interesting.
So,
But anyway, those are just a couple of things that have happened.
it sounds like you have a bunch you could choose from. One of the questions I want to ask about any of those, how many people did you tell about those the events, those experiences?
Anybody that was open-minded. My mother, of course, and my son. Matter of fact, I drug Jessica out into the garage, and I said, "We're going to do an EVP. We're going
How is Jessica? I remember him from some classes.
He's doing really well. Thank you.
Tell him hello.
I sure will.
Yeah, I'm glad to know he's doing well. So we just had someone join us through the magic of technology, another OFS member, somebody that I've known for at least 5 minutes, no, probably more like 15 years, and that would be Sherry Mulholland. Sherry, you're there in Florida. How are you?
I'm Mrs. Boo tonight. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I like your Mrs. Boo.
Yeah, that is good. So one of the questions I just asked Geoff and LynnDee was, why did they join the Olympia 14 Society? And so we'd like to hear your answer to that.
Well, as most of you already know about me, having been a researcher in the past when I lived up in Washington State. When I moved here, it was the pandemic, and I had already retired from the ghost group, the paranormal group. And I thought I was kind of done with it all. But then you offered to let me join this group and kind of be a part of discussions and kind of seeking answers and just kind of having some kind of camaraderie. And I mean, that all made sense to me. And what I found is, I actually found a great interest kind of recharge since I retired. So here I am. I'm out looking for UFOs now.
Is that where you are now?
Well, no, I computer, Dan, how the
Yeah.
computers are working for you and me. I just was shut out of Zoom. I had to actually get on another computer and download it. That's why I'm late.
Oh,
Here I
gosh.
am, folks. Can you see a picture of me?
I can see your glasses, essentially.
Okay. There.
I can see
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Anyway, Sherry, we're glad you could join us. So I'm going to go to Geoff, and then I'm going to come back to you to kind of just ask LynnDee to tell us about some paranormal experiences she had. And boy, she started young and has had a whole bunch of paranormal experiences. So let me go to Geoff, and then I know you've had some paranormal experiences because I was with you when we had some of those. So Geoff, tell us about a paranormal experience that you've had.
Well, let's see. I've already alluded to one of them, but I'll go ahead and tell the whole story for those that haven't heard this. But when I was a student at the University of Missouri in Columbia in the early '80s, I worked in a old building. So it's over 100 years old. That had 2 stories to it. The bottom had the Museum of Anthropology, and the top had other offices in the anthropology department, including one that was a library for anthropology students to use only, and I volunteered some time there as well. But one afternoon and Friday in October of all months, I was by myself, and it was midterms, I was getting ready, trying to study, and then out of the corner of my eye, down the hall, I see a door just open by itself, like someone just opened it and just kind of walked through and then closed it behind them. I didn't think much of it. I thought it might have been the wind until I realized that hallway that I was in and where the other offices were was an interior hallway. So there's no real direct connection to if a window's open or not. But I go back. I'm a little unnerved, but I figured I'll just type whatever. I'll go back to studying. And a couple minutes later, it opens again, then closes. And at that point, I'm deciding maybe it's not too early to pack things up and head out. As I'm getting my backpack ready to go, the damn door opens one more time and then closes. And at that point, I was out of there. The bad news was I had to go by where that door was to get out.
How unfortunate.
You scooted by real quick.
I did not waste any time. I was just absolutely unnerved by that experience. And I did, except for a few close friends, I did not say a damn word to anybody for years and years. It really wasn't until those programs started appearing, like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and all those others started showing up, that I felt a little more comfortable to talk about it. But yeah, that was one incident. That's the old adage about some people are born to be great, some are born to have greatness thrust upon them. Well, you can say the same thing about the paranormal. Some people are born to show some interest in it, but then some are like us, just get it thrust on us, or we're ready for it or not.
Yeah.
So that's probably my earliest experience with that. But in a little over a decade ago, I was in the United Kingdom with my dad and son, and we were in this old castle in Carlisle, England. It's close to the English-Scottish border. There's a lot of history in that part of the world, especially from the Wars of Independence through the what were called the Jacobite rebellions of the early to mid 1700s. But we were at Carlisle Castle, and I was in the dungeon, area where some of the prisoners were held. You can see they were manacled to the walls. The manacles are long gone, but you can see the holes where they were in. And those prisoners died of starvation in there. They would, the stories were they would stay alive through by licking the stones for moisture, and in some cases, some cases those stones are kind of rubbed very thinly now. But I'm in there. I had read Sir Walter Scott's novel Waverley about the 1745 rebellion. That was the last one, and I knew that some of the prisoners were kept there and died there, so I wanted to pay some tribute. Weren't able to get to the Culloden battlefield where the final battle occurred, where they lost. But I always wanted to use to mention the rallying cry that Sir Walter Scott talks about. In memory of those that fought for what was realistically was one of the most misguided of causes, if you look at it historically. But I'm in there by myself. I didn't know my dad was outside taking pictures of me, which kind of came handy later, I realized. But I'm in there, and I decided just to shout out to "Long live King James," and then I could feel kind of a shiver going down the back of my neck.
No.
At that point, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. This was before I started taking the ghost hunting classes with Dan. This is back in 2010 when we were there. And all of a sudden, my dad comes in and says, "Well, what's all the shouting about?" I said, "I just wanted to pay tribute to those that died in here, Dad." They said, "Well, let's go find your son, and we'll head on out." So we did. Later, when I looked at the photos of the one he took with me, and it's so hard to make out because I didn't feel like I was alone in there. And if I'm right, whoever was in there with me hadn't walked this planet in almost 275 years. But I'm looking at the photos, and I had to really zoom in on it, but there's an orb in there. And it's so perfectly placed over one of the licking stones. I didn't see it at first, but part of me thought, there's got to be some proof here. There's got to be something indicates that I may not have been by myself. And
you had the sensation, you had the chill going down your spine, and then you have proof of the orb, so you weren't alone.
Yeah, I wasn't alone. And another time an orb came in handy, even though I did not see the photo of it at the Pioneer Cemetery in town for the ghost hunting class. I was by a grave in there, and I felt something grab my ankle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But what was weird about it was one of the other students was taking pictures, and when I mentioned that, she said, "Geoff, when you mentioned that you felt something grabbed you," I said, "Yeah, well, there's an orb by your leg." That I took a picture of. So
wow.
Yeah.
Photographic evidence, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly evidence of something. I mean, it's not conclusive. None of this is. That's the tough thing about it. None of this is really conclusive, but it's interesting. I mean, that old the building I worked at at Mizzou, that building had some history itself, not just the museum. And years later, I would go in there because they were renovating it. The museum was being pulled out and moved off campus, so there was that. And I decided to get some pictures going. So I asked permission if I could go up and down the building and take pictures everywhere, including that hallway where the door was. But I go up the stairs, and I actually meet a professor that was there at the time, and I asked her if anybody ever reported anything unusual in that area, in that part of the building, and she said no. And I thanked her, and then I went around the corner and took more pictures. And it was later that afternoon, I was going through them, and I found one of the frames shows one of the biggest orbs I think I've ever seen.
Wow.
In that, yeah. But what's also interesting about that building, at the time in the 1980s, the upstairs housed the physical anthropology department. And at that time, there were Native American remains in that room.
Hmm.
So yeah, you throw all that in, it makes things look a little more interesting.
Little, yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
yeah, outside of that building, the original campus had one huge building in the 19th century, and it burned to the ground.
Hmm.
So all that's left of them and it's part of, whenever you look up the University of Missouri, you're going to see a row of columns by themselves. That's what's left of the building, of the original building. The other buildings are what we call Red Square, because they're all made out of red brick, and they're all just as old in there. So yeah, I think there's definitely something weird has been going on that campus for a long time.
Something weird in your neighborhood. Sherry, now, what I know about Sherry Mulholland, Ms. Boo, if you hang around Sherry and you don't have something weird happen to you, there's something wrong with you. So, Sherry, pick out one thing in your life that you want to talk about that is paranormal in origin.
Well, you talk about hanging out with me and having experiences. You went with me, sought out these experiences, so it didn't naturally happen. I mean, we sought them. I'm gonna talk about LynnDee because that's the one that you on with me.
Yeah, yeah.
We were called in. A young couple had gone down to Portland and picked up some furniture or something, brought it back to Linden, Washington, and even on the drive, they had the furniture in a pickup, and they were in the cab of the pickup, of course, driving up north from Oregon, and the driver actually an image like a face in the mirror that was very scary to him, and he almost ran off the road, he said. But anyway, they did get home, brought the furniture in the house. I think it was a bedroom, if I recall, and they started just having all kinds of strange things happen. And it started out very innocent like, it kind of got very scary, and then it kind of got life threatening to the point that they were just so anxious that they couldn't get sleep. She was working nights, and so he was home alone and at night, and it seemed like when you were alone with this energy, I'm not even sure it was a ghost. It might have been something else that we just don't understand. Uh, that's when it would come around and creep you out. And my computer's telling me that my internet is unstable right now. So if you lose me, you'll know why.
My computer's been telling me that for the last half hour, so hopefully that's not a
Okay.
bad sign.
Yeah. Well, we've been having some storms here,
Oh.
storms, so that's part of it too. But anyway, they called us in, and sure enough, I went up into his apartment. It was an upstairs apartment, and another investigator, the man of the house, and the other investigator, his name was LynnDee, who's also a member of this group, were downstairs talking, having their cigarette break. And I was alone up in the house starting to take pictures and record and stuff like that. And this thing zoomed. That's all I could think to call it. It zoomed me. It came around, it like circled around me, and it made shivers go down my spine. Honest to God. You hear him talk about that happening. This thing created that. It's like the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and it was just the weirdest feeling. So I went back downstairs. Of course, I was by myself. I didn't think of it. I went down and I told the experience to my fellow people downstairs. And then Brian Lee was also left alone in the house. Now, normally we wouldn't think about leaving somebody alone, but this thing was very cowardly in a sense. It would only reveal itself if you're alone. And so Brian, we did an experiment where Brian was left alone in the apartment for a little while. Did the same thing to him. And it's not that we would see it, but by gosh, we could feel it. So, so we knew that this man was right on telling us something. There was something going on in the apartment. So I get on the phone to my friend. And so we were there for a number of days. And so Dan came back to us when we did on the second day. And it was Thanksgiving weekend. It was actually, I think, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving Eve, Dan drives from Olympia and joins us, and it's just me and him there. Brian went home and it snowed in. We got snowed in. It snowed really heavy. And Lynn is just below the Canadian border. So they get quite a bit of snow, more so than Bellingham. So we're these people's house, still only being there for a few hours. And now we're snowed in. And so, and this young couple are, they're just a young couple trying to make ends meet and stuff like this. They have food in the refrigerator. I happen to have in my car some taquitos, the frozen taquitos. Well, it snowed, so they weren't frozen. I mean, they were pretty damn cold, so they were good still. And I had done grocery shopping, and I had some frozen burritos, and that's what we had for Thanksgiving. We microwaved that, and that was our Thanksgiving meal. So next day, Brian Lee, who had a vehicle that had four-wheel drive, he comes up to join us, and it's nighttime. And now she's at work. It's nighttime. She's at work. Dan's got his record, and he's going to work, pick her up, and it's just us paranormal investigators in the house. So me and Brian decided we're going to go get hamburgers. I mean, all we've had was taquitos and burritos. I had only had that, me and Dan, for 2 days. So we were tired of that. So Brian, and of course, I think Dan gave us an order. So we're going to go pick it up, leaving Dan alone in the apartment. Now, Dan tells me he's never experienced anything paranormal. He won't, but he never has. So, Dan, I'm going to let you tell it from here on out.
Well, I couldn't decide whether I was pissed at Brian and Sherry or not, because she gave me a really good opportunity to have a paranormal experience. So while they were gone, I had a EMF detector, and I went through the entire house looking for, spikes and EMF energy. Didn't find anything. So for some reason, I thought I would leave the EMF detector in the bathroom. And I went out on the couch in this apartment to sit on the couch. And as I'm sitting there, the EMF detector starts to go off because it beeped. And I was thinking, well, that's weird. I was just in there and I didn't pick up anything. So the next thing I find is that the hair on the back of my neck is going up. And I'm thinking to myself, where in the hell are Brian and Sherry? Because I'm sitting here alone in this house with all kinds of weird shit happening to me. And I don't know where the hell they're at. So that's the kind of thing that can happen to you when you hang out with Sherry Mulholland. Anyway, that's a fun memory. That's that weekend. Beside that, I also got my first EVPs. And so that was a very, very psychically active house. One of the EVPs was a knock on the wall that you could only hear on the tape recorder. The other EVP, which was a bit scarier, was a low moan. And the only way you could hear that was on the recording device. Anyway, I have to thank Sherry Mulholland for some of my first paranormal experiences. So I'm cognizant of the time that we have here. So let me ask a couple more questions, then I'll try to bring this to a close. So when I go to a paranormal conference, I usually see three groups of people. They're the UFO people. They're all into, aliens, UFOs, abductees. Then there's the cryptid people, which are usually Bigfoot kind of folks. And then there's the ghost people who are, interested in some of the things we just talked about. So if you had to put yourself into a category, ghosts, aliens, UFOs, cryptids, what category would you pick for yourself? LynnDee, which category? And you can say all three. I guess that's
Yeah, you can't. I'm not. I have to be in all of them. And there's no, because I've had experience, except for the crypto, but and both the others. And the crypto fascinates me, and I would love to have an experience, but no, I can't go into just one group.
okay. Geoff, what are you gonna say?
out of 3, yeah, definitely. Cryptids, very reluctantly on UFOs, just very reluctantly.
No, can I ask why?
Well, it's a twofold answer on that one. One, you can't separate them away from government conspiracies. And two, the ancient astronaut theory, from what as a former anthropology major and emphasis in archaeology, there's not enough evidence on that, just almost non-existent from what I have said. However, I appear to have had some experiences with UFOs.
Yeah. So Sherry, what about you? Which camp are you in? The ghosts, the cryptids, or the ETs?
I want to say real quick, you have this picture up with you, and I have it on the screen, and this is the biggest. I keep waiting for that couple sitting in the table behind you to move. Have you guys had that same thing?
No, I think I know the guy sitting there. I
Do
think
you know
it's
that guy?
I mean, when I'm looking at Dan's picture, I'm expecting people to start, interacting.
to move.
Yeah.
I just noticed them, so
Just now?
yeah, I just noticed. Well, yeah, there are people. So okay.
Okay.
Well, I would have sworn earlier Dan was talking. I would have sworn I saw his eye blink on
Oh,
the photo. And I was like, it must have been just me blinking.
Well, this is a paranormal podcast, so I guess you expect
Anything
that
could
things to
happen.
Yeah.
you may have just saw my wife go by.
Yeah. Say hello.
Yeah.
That could
so-
have been a ghost.
It could have been a ghost. So Sherry, are you a UFO person, a cryptid person, or a ghost? Or
Well,
all three?
now I'm a UFO person, but before I really all three. But while I was in the last years that I was in Bellingham, I think. But a ghost person, when you met me, I was just strictly ghost, and then you got me interested in the Sasquatch, and then from Sasquatch, I'm in Florida. I have nobody to go out with me. I don't know anybody that's interested in the paranormal. So I'm going out once on my own, looking up in the sky. So that's where my interest is.
When I asked this question about which camp are you in, or which kind of area of the paranormal you're interested in, I can't help but think about the Skinwalker Ranch. Now, I just joined some kind of a thing on the History Channel where I can watch all the History Channel episodes. And I just got my shirt, the Skinwalker Ranch shirt, the other day.
Yeah.
And one of the things that fascinates me about a place like the Skinwalker Ranch is you've got all three of these things going on. You've got kind of ghostly, paranormal, poltergeist activity. You've got flying saucers. You've got cryptids. So the thing that I kind of wondered about is maybe all these things are part of the same phenomena. They're just kind of little different varieties of that. Anybody want to jump on that? Give their opinion about that?
I thought this when you sent out that email, I got to thinking. We're talking interdimensional science. I can't really go deep into this. Thinking about interdimensional, it seems all three of these things are part of that. So I'm like open to all of that.
Yeah, I think they're all combined. I think I think it's all somewhat related, especially since it's saturated in that area and where it's all going on. The lights, the little beings that they see, and the ghost or spirit kind of things going on. I think it's just a major hotspot. And Dan, you had said that we have one here
We do.
in Washington, and it's like, ooh.
And Sherry and Geoff are very familiar with what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna
No.
talk about that on the show, but we know a spot here in Washington that sounds a lot like Skinwalker Ranch, so
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is an intriguing idea. It's like, why are there parts of the planet that are like that? What specific to that part of the planet that causes that kind of behavior, those kind of phenomena? That's an
Well,
intriguing
one
question.
answer, one answer could somebody was there with a Ouija board, opened a portal.
Probably in the house.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all started there.
Well, we just had Karen Dahlman join our group, and she's a Ouijaologist. So if anybody would be kind of thinking along those lines, it would sure be her. But that's very interesting. All right, so I realize that you have other things to do besides hang out with me. So are there any other final, like, paranormal things? LynnDee and I were talking about Mothman a little bit earlier. I know that's a very interesting case. Are there any other, what fascinates you about Mothman, LynnDee?
Well, I just saw a show on it, and there's so many people. I mean, it goes back to the 50s and before these sightings of the Mothman, and how people are actually reluctant or get frightened just talking about it. And when they do that, you know that they've had an experience. It's not just something that someone told them about, that they are, it's an emotional attachment of seeing this thing. And it's been around for a long, long, long time. And the one thing that fascinated me about it is that you never hear about any attacks or anything like that. And that some of the people that were interviewed were saying that they were thinking that it wanted to communicate. But nobody stopped to try to, they were so frightened, I guess, tried to communicate with it. And that would probably be the first thing I'd want to do, is not run unless it was being, threatening, aggressive, but to actually figure out or have a communication with it.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. So,
it'd be,
any thoughts?
I lost your I can't hear you.
Oh, gosh. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, welcome to technology. So Geoff and I did a class on Bigfoot and the Mothman and the Loch Ness Monster. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about Mothman, Geoff?
It's really more your field than mine, Dan. I mean, I've read John Keel's book and reread it actually. Certainly got more out of it the second time around. It's just a smorgasbord of everything paranormal combined in that case alone. To me, it's just kind of hard just to grasp on one particular aspect of it. I mean, because it's part cryptid, it's part UFO, it's part poltergeist, it's part Indrid Cold, whoever Indrid Cold actually was.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
I find it just, it's one of those stories that just gets under your skin and it just doesn't relinquish itself.
Sure, any thoughts about the Mothman?
I'm kind of tough. I've seen a documentary on it, and that's it. I haven't even read a book.
Yeah.
So I was fascinated with the documentary, but just haven't gotten to that point where I'm out in search of it.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of weird things out there, and I appreciate the fact that you all wanted to be on the show to talk about this. So I thank you, LynnDee, Terry, and Geoff. I thank you for being on with us at Roundtable. Maybe we'll try this again.
Lynn, I just want to say, Lynn, I'm really happy to see you on screen and kind of get to meet you.
Yeah.
Oh, same with you, Boo. Can I call you Boo?
Yes. Yeah, Dan calls me Miss Boo. That's why I put that up there.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I appreciate all of you. I'm glad I'm in a group with all of you where we can talk about these things and try to make I told somebody we ought to have a bumper sticker for the OFS and say our job is to make the paranormal normal. And by talking about this stuff, maybe we get it to be that way. But thanks so much for being on with us.
Oh, thanks for having. I mean, this is a wonderful way to show other people and I appreciate you including me tonight.
Sure. And maybe Geoff and LynnDee will see you on June 29th at the Olympia Center and talk about the aerial school phenomenon. Sherry, I wish you
Sure.
could be here for that, but you'd have to,
I did. I
Fly.
saw it in the email.
yeah, you'd have to fly from Florida
Yeah.
back to Washington.
Well, maybe get Mothman to give me a lift.
That's always possible. All right, I'm going to close this off. Thanks again for being part of it.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. And
Thanks for
on
having-
it really nice talking to all of you.
Yeah, we'll try to do this again.
Yay. I can't wait.
Okay. all
Thanks,
right.
Dan.
Yeah. Good night, guys.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks again, Dan.